Powerful luxury SUVs like the G-wagon and Urus are notorious for their high depreciation rates, costing their owners tens of thousands of dollars. This was indeed true for the last couple of years, as prices came down from their pandemic heights, but the market is changing yet again. Welcome to the market update for the G-wagon and Lamborghini Urus. In this video you'll be updated with the latest price changes and how they compare to the rest of the market. The result is rather surprising, so buyers, owners and sellers, pay attention. Normally I don't cover too many SUVs, so there's a good chance that this is your first time visiting the channel. If so, welcome! This channel is all about data-driven depreciation analysis, so that you know exactly how much you can expect to lose or gain on your car. Let's get started with the second generation G-wagons. Over here we have the recent prices for the G65 AMGs, excluding the squared versions and the Brabus editions. We can see a remarkable clean price trends. Prices plummeted after the pandemic price top, but reverted back to more normal depreciation rates during 2023. Most cars are currently priced around $172.9 thousand, and this is 10.4% or $20.1 thousand less than 1 year ago. This 10.4% is an average price decrease. If we break it down by the different model years, we can see that especially 2019 and 2020 cars held up well during the last 6 months. This isn't surprising since they are the oldest cars, yet it is quite unusual to see flat developments. Continuing with the G550, we can see a similar price trend as in the G63 AMG market, a steep decline after the pandemic price top and a flattening in the recent months. Depreciation rates used to be extremely high, but are much more reasonable now. Last year, G550s lost on average 9.9% or $14.7 thousand. Most cars are now priced at approximately $137 thousand. The flattening is a bit stronger than in the G63 AMG market. This is because it applies to all model years, with exception of the 2024 cars. Truly a remarkable development in the luxury SUV segment. Let's have a look now at the first generation. Over here we have the price trends for the G63 and G550, excluding the squared and Brabus editions. The trend for the G65 AMG has a very large uncertainty, as the market for these cars is small, so I excluded those. Now the trends that we see over here depict some similarity to the second generation trends. A drop from pandemic highs, followed by a slightly lower depreciation rate. Compared to last year, G63 AMGs lost on average 10.6% or $10,000 and G55s 10.3% or $7.3 thousand, bringing prices down to $86.4 and $63.7 thousand. Decreases that are in the same ballpark as the second generation cars. If we move on to the older stuff, so the G55 AMGs and G500s, we can see that the shape of the trend is similar yet again, but that the rates are clearly lower. During last year, the G500 lost 5.9% or $2.2 thousand, and the G55 AMGs 6.3% or $3.5 thousand. These changes though aren't statistically confirmed, so this means that they could be the result of chance, so keep that in the back of your mind. And with that, it's time to move on to the Urus. For a long time, values held up really well, but also these cars couldn't avoid the post-pandemic correction. If we start with the base model of the Urus, we can see that prices rose tremendously during the pandemic. Unfortunately, I don't have the intermediate data points, but this pattern is in line with the rest of the market. Nevertheless, the summer of 2022 marked the market top, after which the correction started. And oh boy, prices plummeted indeed. 23.3% is the price drop compared to August 2022, and this amounts to $70 thousand. Moreover, you can see that prices have been falling linearly, so this means that prices dropped by 13.1% during last year, or $35 thousand. There is, however, also a bit of good news. If we break it down by model year, we can see that prices started to flatten for the cars from 2019 and 2020. 2020 cars lost approximately 10%, slightly less than the average of 13.1%. Moving on to the S and Performante models, we can see that prices held up quite well in the first 3 months, but when supply increased, prices started to fall. Compared to May of last year, prices decreased by 12.8% in the Performante market and by 11.2% in the S market. In monetary terms, we're looking at $47.5 and $37,000. Yet, looking at the last 8 months, we can see that the cars are dropping at 15.1 and 13.8%. So if you buy one today, I think it makes sense to expect values to decrease by these rates. We saw now quite a lot of numbers, so let's put everything together and deduce some insights. If we look now at all the depreciation rates that we saw, you can see that the relatively new models all lost between 10 and 13%. Given the high number of cars and consistency across the ranges, I believe these are reliable estimates. Only the models that are significantly older, so the G55 AMG and G500, lost considerably less at approximately 6%. But these numbers tell only part of the story. We also saw that the market is changing again. After the pandemic price top, all models corrected, irrespective of their age. During 2023 though, we observed that rates started to differ among the various model years. Older cars started to depreciate more slowly, something that of course is a natural development. So if you're a value-conscious buyer, it makes again sense to avoid the brand spanking new ones. But value-conscious and buying a G-wagon or a Urus in one sentence sounds a little bit strange, right? Or does it? These cars are known for their extortionate depreciation rates, but in reality the situation isn't that bad at all. If we look for example at a different high depreciating segment, the one of the 4-doors AMG GTs and Panameras, we can see that depreciation rates are much higher. Panamera turbos lost 18.4% during last year, GT63 S's 17.2% and base models 16%. All of these rates are higher than the ones in the G-wagon and Urus market. But it's not just the comparison to other high-end cars that works in favor of the G-wagon and the Urus. Also compared to the rest of the market, they hold up well. Over here we have the US year-over-year price changes for almost all cars that feature on my channel. On the horizontal axis, we have the price changes compared to last year in percentages, and on the vertical axis, we have the number of cars to which this change applies. The average decrease during last year was 7.1%, and most cars lost between 12 and 2%, with an average decrease of 12.4% in the Urus market, 10.2% in the relatively new G-wagon market, and 6.1% for the older G-wagons. Both models held up relatively well. New cars of course tend to fall on the left hand side of the average, so it's no surprise that both models lost more than the average. What is quite surprising though, is that only the Urus falls in the top 25% of cars that lost the most, but does only barely so. I expected that both models would fall somewhere between the 15 and 20% mark, similar to the Panamera market. Now this increase in price strength in the G-wagon and Urus market is not just reflected in the prices themselves. Also the inventory data confirms this. Over here we can see the development in the carried over inventory for some second generation G-wagons and the base Urus model. The carried over inventory is the percentage of cars that aren't sold within 3 months. Typically, when this value increases, cars are selling slower, something that puts downward pressure on prices. When it decreases, cars are selling quicker, typically leading to an increase in price strength. We can see that the trends have been decreasing and that, compared to last year, a smaller share of the market is listed for sale for longer than 3 months, and this matches with the prices that we saw earlier. Now sellers of course aren't dumb, they also picked up on this and they're no longer applying the discounts on unsold inventory that we saw post the pandemic price top. If we look at the price changes for unsold inventory, we can see that, with exception of some typical seasonal fluctuations, they have been decreasing. Sellers know that they no longer need to discount unsold inventory that aggressively, as it's likely to sell anyways. This is another indication that the price strength has been increasing during 2023. Let's wrap up and conclude. We saw that the market changed dramatically during 2023. We went from a situation in which all cars are depreciating with high rates, to one where the rates are a bit lower and again have differences between old and new cars. That's however only part of the story. We also saw that relatively new G-wagons lost approximately 10%, the older ones 6.1%, and the Uruses 12.4%. These rates of course translate to insane monetary losses, but are in relative terms not that bad. To my surprise, G-wagons and Uruses dropped only slightly quicker than the average rate, and only the Urus just made it to the top 25% of cars that depreciated the quickest. Now given this, I don't think it's a particular bad moment to buy a G-wagon if you're somewhat of a value-conscious buyer, especially if you avoid the 1 to 2 year old cars. Right now, you're buying after a big correction, at a moment that rates are starting to flatten again, like they should. The only downside is that it seems unlikely that you'll get a massive deal, as also sellers are aware of this increase in price strength. And with that we arrive at the end of this video. Now if you enjoy this data-driven way of analyzing car prices, but would like to see a video for a different car, head over to my channel. Over there you'll find data-driven market updates for a large variety of cars. Over here you can find, for example, the full market analysis for the Panameras, and over here you can find the market update for the 911 Carreras. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week for a new video.